chose to use my large water pipe and loaded some cannabis ashes in the bowl. Set about 90 milligrams of yellowish-white DMT on the ash with some tweezers, then covered it with a little bud I had grown in my garden earlier this year. I did not take any other supplements or herbs. I turned on some Tibetan meditation music and centered myself for a few minutes. Once I felt grounded, I took a deep breath and grabbed the water pipe. I took a galactic hit and relaxed on the couch while exhaling sweet smoke of cannabis and dimethyltryptamine. As soon as the back of my head touched the pillow, I muttered, and I felt my head tilt over to the left as I suddenly lost connection with my body and felt the couch sink into the ground. The separation from my body was very abrupt, startling, and sudden. I then found myself in outer space, or some sort of space. I knew I existed, but not as the normal me that I, my friends, and family know. I was simply an observer of what I had no clue yet, and my ego had been completely smashed and obliterated to a pulp. I couldn't move since I really didn't have a self to move with. I found myself as a piece of energy consciousness, suspended in a dark, multidimensional space, with what I perceived to be an even darker line in the distance that seemed to be rotating my way. When I tried to focus my attention on it, it would grow another line that would pop out of one of the sides of the initial line. Suddenly, there were flashes of wave energy that originated from what I perceived to be a horizon in the dark distance behind the line. I then heard, "This is love," and I felt a level of love and peace that I can't really put on paper. I felt a lot of electricity. The flashes lit up the space I was in, and the feeling of being dead and away from my body grew. At this point, I believed I was in this space forever. Although initially startled, I had no problems with being there whatsoever. Once I realized that I was dead, I was startled by this huge golden dragon that burst out of the horizon. It was the size of multiple galaxies and it radiated electric energy of various colors. I suddenly heard, "This is your channel. You're building this channel. Let this transmission be manifested." I was suddenly floating in front of 4 squares that were connected and formed a cross in the middle. There was what I perceived to be a Buddha in one square and Shiva in another. I had no idea why they were there, but it seemed okay to me. The other 2 squares had dragons, and there were spinning yin-yang symbols on the corners of the squares. At this point, I thought I was still dead, and I had been there forever. My field of vision started to morph in and stretch in a chaotic manner. The squares started to spin, and I started to realize that I wasn't dead, but that I was out of my body and due to return at some point. I started to see different nebulous forms ranging from ebony to bright white. The lights and sounds suddenly stopped, and I was once again in that dark space where I had started the quest. To my left appeared a cosmic force of what I perceived to be Aztec or Mayan warriors, and to my right appeared a force of what appeared to be Knights Templar in full armor and shields. They were clashing in the middle of this floating galaxy with vivid colors and bursts of sounds and lights. It seemed to blend in with the vision perfectly, and the entities I was seeing were intelligently dancing and fighting to the music, and even changing their colors and dimensions moments before the music would transform at critical note changes, as if they knew what parts were coming up. I suddenly heard, "These forces are clashing for channels." The voice then said, "There's way more here than meets the eye." I suddenly felt a vibration in my field of vision, and I started seeing different symbols and images all around. I felt as if I was flying through all of these images, like going through a tube. After what felt like an eternity of gathering random information while hearing a narrative voice explaining what I was seeing, I started to feel myself getting closer to my body in my living room. I could then feel my eyes and face. Next, my chest, arms, and legs. I finally opened my eyes and everything in the room was vibrating and the meditation music was still humming away. That entire experience only took 21 minutes, but it felt like an eternity. This was an amazing experience.